Okay, so another day, another article appears in my feed someplace about alien life and how things may have occurred. This one comes from Dr. John Brandenburg, which he's a Harvard physicist, and as a fellow physicist, I'm like, I try to give all these things at least some kind of moment of, okay, are these guys, crazy? Are they real? And he's pretty happy about the fact that the Daily Mail is talking about some of his work, where he thinks Mars was home to a civilization that destroyed itself with nuclear war. So I went and looked at the Daily Mail article where the Harvard scientist claims Mars was home to a civilization wiped out in a nuclear war. An ancient civilization on Mars was wiped out by a nuclear attack from another alien race. So if you go through this, he really does kind of say, hey, look, here was a nuclear explosion, here was a nuclear explosion, prevailing winds, all these other things. Um, and the Daily Mail article kind of takes a lot of stuff at a very high level and tries to kind of convince you of a lot of stuff. Dr. Brandenburg has also argued that Mars had a once had an Earth-like climate, home to animals and plant life and intelligent life that would have been as advanced as the ancient Egyptians on Earth. And they look at some of these structures and go, "Oh, look, pyramids," and they look at the face, which has now been kind of shown to not be a face because we have much better resolution images of it now. Let's look through the gallery and see what else they have here. So yeah, there he is. Oh, look, maybe pyramids, maybe natural structures, maybe a bone or maybe a rock, sitting in a bizarre place. Now, I went and found the original article of his, and let's go up to the top here. It's a 51-page article in the Journal of Cosmology, which is far from the most reputable journal anywhere. But I read it, all 51 pages of it. Okay, I skimmed parts of it. But what he's trying to do is say the Fermi paradox maybe applies here. And the Fermi paradox is, if alien life is so common, where the hell are they, right? Why if it's so easy to develop intelligent life, where is everybody? Mars versus Earth. He looks at the xenon levels on Mars, and you got to remember that he's looking at really small numbers here, right? So, oh look, they have more of this particular isotope of xenon than we do, normed to Earth. Well, he's assuming that Earth and Mars are kind of the same. Uh, Mars version, and they are for the non radioactive, or for the non created by a radiation by a bomb. Sure. um, so here's Mars xenon. Here's the fission xenon, which is created by a fission reaction. And now look, it's a little higher. It shouldn't be, but you got to remember these parts are that's small numbers, and you're trying to take numbers. You're trying to take data on a planet that we don't have tons of sensors on. So you're taking a secondary reading to get to these things. And how accurate that is, you got a hyper accurate measurement on Earth, you got a maybe accurate measurement on Mars that has a large error rate. And notice he doesn't show his error bars here. He just says it's this. Well, any reputable scientist would have error bars in here. Not that he's not reputable, but if I was publishing a paper, I would have error bars in there. I wouldn't just throw out a number. I would say it's accurate to plus or minus some percentage. And the red flag for me is there's not even error bars on Earth, and there should be. They'd be small, but they should be there, right? Because we can get direct measurements. Now you're trying to take secondary measurements on another planet and say they're the same as measurements here on Earth. He gets into some neutron measurements. He gets into all kinds of other stuff. But if you go down here to the conclusions, which is the interesting thing, he's got like all kinds of pictures that are the low res, older images of what we had from Mars, not the current ones. Oh, look, there's that face. Maybe it was a monument of some kind. Well, now we have better resolution images of it. It's not. He compares it to something over in Mexico. But the summary. So it's the existence of a dead humanoid civilization on Mars is completely consistent with its apparent long-lived Earth-like past climates and principle of mediocrity, the idea that human intelligence is not exotic or miraculous, but a natural consequence of long-lived Earth-like biosphere. The Martian civilization apparently perished due to the planet-wide catastrophe of unknown origin and changed Mars climate from being Earth-like in its present state to brief period compared with geological time. However, what ended the civilization? Was it a massive nuclear attack? So he goes into a lot of sit in both sides of it here, right? He even evokes, Star Wars and Terminator and all kinds of other crap. But what he doesn't do is say, hey, look, you know, here's the remnants of a city, here's the remnants of, some other thing. And you really have to do that. These are sort of, oh look, here's sort of a face, here's a cliff, here's a pyramid, kind of, maybe, sort of, all of which have been shown to be something else now. And what you forget is after bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So let's go look at images. Right. So right after you bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki with a bomb, you get this, and there's still structures there. There's still things there further out than the central bomb. Um, and you're not seeing that anywhere here on Mars. So he's saying, yeah, they were destroyed. They were absolutely destroyed by a nuclear bomb. I can't show you where the cities were. I can't show you any structures other than maybe this thing that's sort of been kind of disproven now. It wasn't when he wrote the article, but um, it has been now. We have much higher resolution images of the stuff now. And of course, the Daily Mail ran off with it and said, "Hey, it's a slow news day. Let's go publish this thing. Aliens are in the news again." And the trouble is, there's no evidence. There's no real evidence to support this. This article has some really hand wavy stuff that says, "Trust me." Like getting a map of exactly the layout of all these things. This is large computer model stuff. This is not real measurement, and it's kind of presented as, here's the concentration. It's not saying, hey, look, I did some measurements and I kind of assumed a lot of stuff, and after those assumptions you get this map. And also the lack of error bars in here is greatly disturbing. So if a grad student handed me this and said, hey, I think this, if they handed me this paper and said, hey, can we send it out, I would not attach my name to it, because the evidence here is at best hand wavy. This might be enough to have somebody look at it and go, you know what, we should follow up on this. Except I want to see the remnants of a city. I want to see, a lot of other things that would evidence this, not just here's where two bombs might have gone off and destroyed everything on the planet, so nothing is visible anymore. You can make the argument that maybe after millions of years everything decayed, but then how is the face still there and how are the pyramids still there, right? So um, this particular one at least has some sort of basis in science, but it's science dressed up to kind of make you believe what they want you to believe, because getting these measurements, unless you're actually on the surface of Mars, is really hard to do. So um, is he right? Well, I can't say that he's right, at least from the evidence presented here. Is he wrong? Well, I can't say that he's wrong based on the evidence supported here. However, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This isn't it. So if you see this article floating around, it's cute, it's fun, and it gets you to think, and it says, hey, maybe, maybe there's something to this. However, there's a lot more questions here than answers, and I cannot, in good conscience, come remotely close to making the same conclusion he did based on the evidence supported. I could think of 20 other ways some of that data could appear, but the only trouble I still have is that data is very, very weak. Um, so can I look at it and go, yeah, he's right, he's not? Does it make you think? Sure. But is he actually got evidence to support this? Nope. But he got an article in the Daily Mail, and I guess we should all applaud him for that. So, to each their own, I guess. Again, a big giant sort of nothing burger, in my opinion. But what's a day without a nothing burger? We're going to have another one tomorrow, I'm sure. Uh, I see no evidence that there was ever a nuclear war on Mars. I see no convincing evidence that there was ever a nuclear war on Mars. And 51 pages of stuff, you can read it for yourself if you like. But it's to me, giant nothing burger. Everybody have a great day.